What's happening, everybody? How y'all making out? Today's guest is drummer Kris Kuss, who presently plays with Boston's Pile. Just Pile is the name of the band. And who was also doing double dipping and double duty with Pelican Movement on Pile's recent tour that brought them through Brooklyn, where they played my favorite venue in the Williamsburg Music Hall. And of course, that was for their killer new record, Green and Gray. Check it out if you haven't already. It rules. But Kris and I were able to walk over near the East River and sit down on a park bench and talk touring, relationships, cats, van life, drumming influences, growing up playing in church. And one of my favorite bands to come out of Boston in the Lot 6, who during the interview I also forgot to mention the two records I especially dig entitled Get Baked on Youth Culture with a K that is, and the other one, Major Fables. At least that's the two that I have. Both are awesome. So check them out, as well as the 7 full-length records Pile has released over the last 12 years. Dudes stay busy. Can't deny that. Speaking of records, shout out to my sponsor, New Orleans Record Press. If you're looking to release in vinyl, go on over to NewOrleansRecordPress.com to check out the packaging, mastering, electroplating, and lacquer cutting options, as well as a real-time quote generator. And they print both 12 and 7-inch records in both 150 and 180 gram variants. And no shortage of ridiculously beautiful vinyl coloring options. And they print small runs of 100 up to runs in the thousands. Need assistance with design or have further questions? Give them a holler. That's NewOrleansRecordPress.com. Crash Bang Boom Podcast is available on iTunes Podcasts, my SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. At least I think it's on Google Play. Are you listening to it on Google Play? If so, let me know at crashbangboompodcast@gmail.com. To my understanding, it's playing there. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, so give me a follow, a like, a subscription, a review, a glowing review at that, etc. It'd all be greatly appreciated. All right, without further ado, here we go, y'all. Kris Kuss, Pile, Green and Gray new album. It rules. Get up on it. Crash Bang Boom.
Crowds go mad with joy.
Kris Kuss, what's happening, man?
Not much. Hanging out.
Yeah, we're just hanging out in a park here, man. You know, we're over here right by the East River. We're in Williamsburg. We've got a little bit of a cityscape, some factory view thing happening here. You know, it could be worse.
No, it's beautiful. The sun's
yeah.
peeking through the clouds.
Yeah, I mean, even if this was shit weather, it's still outdoors and you're not sitting in a van, so there is that.
Always a pleasure.
And by the way, I got to say it. I don't know if you know the reference. I would hope you do, but Kris Kuss will make you drum. Have you gotten that before, man?
My whole childhood.
Okay,
yeah.
I was going to say it, but and it did drum, because you've been playing drums long enough.
I have,
I was going to say, dude, if you haven't gotten that yet, you're hanging out the wrong people.
No, definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
all right, right on. Well, man, congrats on this new record, Green and Gray. I dig it.
Thanks.
I'm psyched about y'all playing at my favorite venue, as I was telling you earlier, in the Williamsburg Music Hall.
Yeah.
Always a killer time. It's the venue that is just intimate enough and has the most killer sound system.
Yeah, so far through soundcheck, it sounded awesome.
And get some bodies in there and let them crank it, and it's going to be sounding fucking badass.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait.
What's going on, y'all, man? You're amidst a run, about a 6-week run here.
Yep. We've been on the road for a couple weeks. We've got a good month ahead of us. Going back through home in Boston tomorrow, which will be fun.
Hometown shows.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're playing a festival, Boston Calling, and then it's going to be a packed show tomorrow night, actually, at Great Scott in Boston.
Oh, Great Scott's a cool joint.
Yeah.
I dig Alston. That's like one of the few places I've kind of hung out in Boston. That's kind of where some of my friends are. So
I mean, yeah, that's a hub for music and young folks all about. So.
You got it. Are you nearby there, or where are you in Boston?
I live in JP right now.
Okay.
But not far. It's a
Gotcha.
20-minute bike ride.
Right on.
Yeah.
Are you on the bike?
As much as I
around?
can, yeah.
I hear you. No major accidents for you, unlike myself?
Not yet, yeah.
All right. I should say it wasn't major. I could have been run over by a car. on a double lane boulevard that didn't have bike lanes.
Oh, man.
So there was that. So I didn't crack my head open. I didn't get paralyzed. I didn't get run over by a car. I just fractured my arm.
I'm glad to hear it wasn't worse. But
You
fracturing
and me
an
both.
arm for a drummer is the worst.
Yeah, high up too, so I couldn't lift my arm at all. But I'm just now getting back to it.
Nice.
So, and I didn't totally suck when I played last night, so that's
Nice.
refreshing.
That is refreshing.
So I guess once you go through these shows in Boston, I saw y'all are also going to Europe later on. That's in September though, right?
Yeah, we just got those dates recently, and the idea is spend about a month over there in
Okay.
September. Should be fun.
Right
It's
on.
going to be our 4th trip over there, which is exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Are y'all to the point where y'all are headlining over there?
As much as any band headlines on their 4th tour,
Yeah.
it's I feel like when we started playing over in Europe, it's like starting from the beginning again, kind
Absolutely.
of. So, I mean, yeah, I think it depends on the show. I don't think it's the same across the board, but I think there'll be a lot of shows we'll be headlining.
Yeah. Once again, I really dig the record. I dig the back catalog. It's amazing to me that one of my buddies just recently hit me to it, and I listened to it, and I was like, man, this is an amalgamation of so many bands that I dig. I was kind of amazed that I wasn't really aware of you prior to recently.
Word, yeah, we played in New York a ton, so
That's crazy town. There's also a billion things going on in New York.
yeah.
But that
no
being
doubt.
said, my friends who know what I like, that's how my friend just posed it to me as well. He was like, dude, I feel like this is right up your alley. Like, how do you not know about this? I'm like, all right, asshole, I'll go check it out. And he was right.
Well, we're still, working to spread the word.
Yeah, man. 12 years into it, I guess, from the first record, I guess came out in 07, I was seeing.
Rick's been doing it for 12. I've been with him for about 10.
Badass. Did y'all go through New Orleans yet on this trip?
We passed by. We didn't
Okay.
actually stop for a show this time.
Okay.
We're going to I think we're working on the dates to hit it up this fall, though.
Nice. Early on, you said y'all went through. Where'd you play in New Orleans?
I believe it's called Gaza Gaza.
Yeah, for sure.
We
Gaza
played
Gaza's
there
cool.
a couple times now.
Nice.
And I mean, over the years, we played a bunch of spots down there, but we were talking about Checkpoint Charlie's.
One of the
which is-
stranger joints.
Yeah, that was an earlier trip, and it was wild.
Yeah, for those who are listening that might not know about Checkpoint Charlie's, you can buy a hamburger, you can shoot pool, you can do laundry, you can watch a live band, you can play video poker, and you can drink. And they leave like old books around, so you can just read random books while you're doing your laundry.
Yeah.
I might have even forgotten some shit, but
yeah, and it's 24 hours a
and
day.
24 hours a day.
I think we must have played after midnight for sure.
Everything starts late in that
Yeah.
town, so easily.
Yeah, it was interesting, the crowd that showed up for that one. Yeah, they were mostly already there, but
That's kind of the way it goes, and the people that like just roll through there is everything from like gutter punks to just random riff-raff to like weirdo neighborhood dudes,
Oh,
like
yeah.
OG French Quarter guys.
Yeah.
I've gotten into many a conversations in that place just hanging out because I played in a band and we played there for years. And in fact, I played in that venue in multiple bands over the course of many years.
Yeah.
And just hanging out. And I mean, as you said, 24 hours, you can roll in there wasted at 4 a.m., sit down, have a drink, get some food. And the next thing you know, you're just having a conversation with some fucking total weirdo. God only knows what, man. It's that place it's like a bizarro vortex of many things that are seemingly incongruent, but
it's still going. It's
still happening.
going. Yeah.
It's still happening. Fucking A, man. Are there any particular spots through the States? It sounds like if y'all played New York a bunch of times.
We have, yeah. We were originally from Boston as a group, so we're going to have a blast up there. And then we always do have a really good time in Chicago. Looking
Nice.
forward to that.
I, to this day, believe it, I have not been to Detroit nor Chicago.
Ever.
I've been to...
That is unbelievable.
I've been to almost every state in the United States, but I haven't been to either of those.
Cities.
I've actually been Southern Illinois,
Okay.
I guess, but I haven't made it to Chicago.
Not as cool.
Yeah, tell me about it. Because I went there from Kentucky to Illinois. It's near like Mammoth Cave and some other thing, and there's a ferry that takes you across the river.
Okay.
And man, dude, we were on that ferry with some rednecks.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I'm from the deep South, and I just assumed that was more of a deep South thing.
no.
I was wrong.
They're all over. I mean, you go north enough in Maine, you'll find them up there, too.
I know, right? Definitely different accent.
Yes, absolutely.
Seriously different
Upper
accent.
Peninsula, Michigan, too, but
Right.
similar vibes. So
Yeah. You mentioned Maine. Have you been to Bar Harbor?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's one of my
definitely.
favorite places in the world.
Beautiful vacation land.
Oh, dude, I've been going there randomly since I was a kid. My dad had friends in New Jersey, and we went on this crazy trip in an RV, and we went to
Nice.
Bal Harbour, and I was like 14 years old, and I
Yeah.
loved it then, and I've been back multiple times.
Yeah.
I love going there, eating lobster, drinking wine,
It's
hanging
gorgeous.
out. I love that. I love that
Yeah,
area.
last year I spent some time traveling, and my girlfriend and I went through Bar Harbor towards the end of the trip, and we were living in a van for a while, and it was just like you were talking about, probably a little smaller and no children, but it was
Right,
a blast and beautiful.
Have y'all played in like Portland, Maine? Have y'all played?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's a couple spots in Portland. We've even, not the full band, but Rick and I played a set up in Bar Harbor.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Where the
definitely.
fuck did y'all play in Bar Harbor?
Some tiny bar, I can't remember the name, but he's done a bunch of solo touring, and one of them I conned my way into playing backup, just
Yeah.
drumming a little, and
Yeah.
I picked up the keyboard for a few songs, which is not my thing. We learned after that one, but
Yeah.
we ended up, it was like a small New England trip, and we ended up playing a small place in Bar Harbor.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It was great, and we were able to explore and have a good time, got some good ice cream, but...
Right on. Yeah, that was like us in Southeast Louisiana. We'd be like, hey, man, we're going to go play like the Panhandle of Florida. That was our main, but Panhandle of Florida, significantly less interesting than Bal Harbour, Maine, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, if you like beaches, it's cool for
I
that.
guess so, man.
But
Oh.
yeah, the closer you get to Alabama and Georgia, the more
Yeah.
it feels.
They're kind of losing on a couple of ideological bullet points right now.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah.
You think? Not proud of that one. When you joined the band, like you said, about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
were y'all touring pretty consistently, or has that been more recently, or?
We hit the road very quickly.
Yeah.
I think I was playing with them for a few months before we did our first tour. We did a 3-week trip with our former guitar player's band, Margin Walker.
Yeah.
And we had a blast, and that's as soon as we knew we were hooked, and we kept touring at least a couple times a year since then.
Okay.
Last year when I did my road trip in the van was the longest we have gone without playing as a full band, and that was 6 months or so.
Wow.
So
What's the longest run y'all have done, would you say?
the longest run we've
Yeah.
done, we did, with the short break in the middle, we did around 4 months
Wow.
worth of travel. Which
Was that
a
in Europe
lot.
as well, or all in the States?
That was a long one in the States and another short one in the States and then a long one in Europe. So
Really?
that was a big year, yeah.
How have you been able to sustain? Because I mean, I was looking at it. I mean, between 2017, 18, and 19, y'all put out 3 full-length records, and it sounds like you've been touring a lot.
Yeah.
So how are y'all sustaining yourselves when you get back in town? Are you
Well,
able to just
we cheated
write?
on one of those. One of those records is a collection of songs that we've had around for years.
Oh, okay.
So the last release we had was Odds and Ends
Yeah.
before Green and Gray, and
That's right.
that one's Odds and Ends from
Hence
a
the
bunch
name.
of recordings.
Gotcha.
But we save money when you can. Rick tours like an animal. When we can't do it, he'll do it on his own. Last year he did a big one with Patrick from Titus Andronicus. and
Okay.
That kind of helped him through the rest of the year when I was not available. And, a lot of it is getting back in the van, touring. And that, I can't keep down a regular job at home.
No.
So piece it together here and there and then go back out and make whatever scratch we can on the road.
Damn, dude. Do you still have a lady in your life?
I do.
Oh, then
I
she's
do.
patient, isn't she?
As much as she can manage, yeah, she is. I love her. She's been great and very supportive. I know it's extremely trying on any relationship, and ours is no exception to that. But we've been together for 8 years this year, so
Damn, dude.
she has been very patient and giving.
Has she pressed you to get a cat, a dog, a goldfish, anything to?
After our road trip, we've been falling in love with cats more and more. We've been
Okay.
cat sitting a bunch, and we're thinking about it. I don't think we could do a dog. It's
Yeah,
a
too
little
much.
more maintenance than we can manage.
Yeah. Cats are little fuckers. Then they'll tear your house apart even more so than a dog, in my opinion. So if you don't have super fancy furniture, yeah, get a cat.
We barely have anything fancy. So
Well, then there you go. Let a cat fuck your non-fancy place up.
yeah, it's a nice, comfortable place, but fancy is not how I would describe us. So.
What do your parents think about all this touring and everything? What expectations did they have for you?
My parents have been extremely supportive. My mother, I think truthfully, she loves that I can come back and see her at least a couple times a year on the road, even if it's only for a few hours. But and my dad thinks it's great. I talk to him regularly too, and he's
cool.
Living vicariously through our adventures, which
There
is
you
fun.
go.
Yeah, he's loving it. He's been a fan of rock and roll for a long time. So
Sweet. He digs the records?
he does. It's a little more modern than he's
I
used
bet.
to.
I
So
bet.
he's still back listening to Allman Brothers and Pink Floyd. But
My man. I listen to that too.
yeah, same here. But he appreciates what we're doing.
Yeah, that's
It's
good.
not like he's rocking the records all the time or nothing.
Right on. So originally you were saying you're Illinois?
Yeah, I
Okay.
grew up in Waukegan, Illinois. It's
All
just
right.
north of Chicago.
Oh, right on. Okay. It's
And-
cold as hell there, I'd imagine.
In the winter, it's
yeah.
hot and sweaty in the summer,
Summer.
too. So it's
I've
got
heard that.
the worst of both worlds and the best of both worlds.
But you mentioned that your dad loved rock and roll, so I imagine you were hearing some of that being played in the house growing up. And
A little, him and my mother were pretty devout Christians when I was growing up.
holy shit.
And I grew up in the church playing music. Like, truthfully, my mom still goes to church all the time. She sang in church growing up.
Oh, okay.
I was there all the time. And, I think I started playing drums, or I was going to youth group and I would hang out and the musicians were playing and the drummer up and left. And there's
Wow.
a drum kit sitting there and they took a couple weeks, but forced me to start playing.
Look at you. How old were you?
I was 14 and I slowly figured it out and kept playing, and then started a punk band with some friends.
The
and-
logical progression.
Exactly. And then I kept playing in church till I was about 20. Yeah. But by that time I had joined a band and started to get a little more serious about music. I wanted to, when I got out of school, I was like, I want to go to school or play drums in college and learn that whole thing. And then I couldn't really afford that right out of the gate. And I was hardly motivated for schooling, so I ended up skipping that idea and just joining a rock band. And we started recording, and we did a little touring and played a lot in the Chicago area. And
Nice.
then once I realized that, we did one tour and realized that some of the band was not down to live in
the
a
way
van.
it goes.
Yeah.
Which is understandable as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, totally.
You do get it.
Absolutely. I mean, touring is for most no one,
Yeah. Seriously.
but I took to it pretty hard.
That's awesome.
So that band kind of fizzled out. We had a great last show and that whole thing, but then I moved to Boston and just kind of pieced together playing with people from there. It started with Craigslist, which didn't work great.
Woo! You got any shit stories from Craigslist? I certainly do. In my time in New York,
Not
some of
terribly
the jams
shit,
that I went
but-
to. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Whoa.
I played with some guys that were pretty decent, but once I sat down and realized like this wasn't the band I was supposed to be in.
Right.
I played along with folks and helped people out with songs they had been writing, and that was kind of my vibe for a long time.
Yeah.
And then started playing with coworkers, and then punk bands came in Boston, and I started playing. I guess I'm misrepresenting. Punk is not what I should be saying, but rock bands.
Okay.
But started playing with some friends in town, and that just kind of led right into playing with Pyle as well.
Right on. You said it sounded like you stopped maybe playing so much in the church, and then at that point your focus was more on being in a group environment outside of that.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm sure you're nostalgic about that time, but is it still something you'd be interested in doing, or do you feel as though maybe you've moved on a little bit from that?
I definitely feel like I've moved on.
Yeah.
In general, I like playing music, and I'm happy to play with pretty much anybody as long as they're really interested and passionate about music. That helps, but I'll give it a chance playing with most folks, truthfully. But, I have to be pretty choosy right now with my schedule the way it is. Yeah. And I've been playing, actually, I'm going to play 2 sets tonight.
Oh, nice.
The opening group, Pelican Movement, I'm playing with as well.
Double dipping.
Yeah. And so I'm happy to play with other groups, but I haven't been so stoked on the idea of playing in church for quite some time. Yeah,
man, it's interesting. I'm kind of an anomaly with most people in group religious experiences. I've only been to church twice in my life.
Right on.
I went once. My dad left town, and I went and stayed with a friend's mother, and for Easter Sunday, she brought us to church.
Okay.
And then one time, my mother brought me to a black church in New Orleans because she said I'd like the band.
Yeah.
And the band was killer, and I was like, oh, these people are getting into it. But literally, I've only been twice.
Yeah.
I had about as much of an a-religious upbringing as someone could have.
Yeah. See, I had the opposite.
Totally. It's what it sounds like.
But that's not my thing anymore. And I do really appreciate it, though, because there were some great musicians in the church that I grew up in and the churches around there, too. And I played in a couple different churches growing up, and I learned so much about motiveness on drums and how to control a room with sound. And it was some of the most valuable music learning I've ever done. And that really paved the way for me to be comfortable playing with whoever.
Right.
I happen to be in a room with that wants to play music. So
the diversity of that experience.
It was. So after that, I stopped playing in churches, but tried playing in like a hip-hop band and a funk band, little country, and it just kind of, I was experimenting with a lot of different stuff. Yeah. Rock is really what stuck, but I love music.
Well, what you mentioned earlier, like kind of finding punk rock, it's so funny that so many people, regardless if they play any kind of rock music, as far as metal, extreme metal, or anything, that's a phrase that I hear so much, so frequently in speaking to drummers and artists and musicians in general. It's like, then I found punk rock.
Yeah,
it's kind of almost become cliche. It's hilarious, but it is true.
Yeah.
So I guess at the time when you started sort of stepping away from that church environment, you were getting into punk rock. Were there any particular drummers in Chicago or recordings in particular where the light bulb kind of went off and you were like, this drummer, whatever he or she is doing, this is kind of my jam?
There's been a ton. I mean, truthfully, for me, it was, through friends in the church who were listening to all sorts of types of music. And there's, truthfully, in the Christian music world, there's a lot of diversity there, too.
Right. That is a bizarre world.
It is. But, so it was a band actually from Philly that I ended up seeing a bunch on tour, that their drummer, his name is Ricky, can't remember his last name, but they're called Me Without You. They're still touring, but that was a huge influence for me. They toured a bunch with this metal band back in the day called Zayo. I think they're still touring too, maybe. But both those bands had great drummers, and they were super influential on me when I was young. And then the church I was in had some really great drummers too. When I was growing up, it was an inspiration watching this dude, Michael Stackhouse, was like really a killer drummer. It was really watching him play. His mother was a fantastic pianist too, and those two could create any atmosphere.
Really?
It was awesome. So that was but then when it came to rock, it was like heavy hitting. Me Without You was as close as I got until I started branching out from there. And then, as I get older, every day I'm learning new awesome drummers and great music. I feel like nowadays my favorite drummers are people that I've played with, people that I've toured with or seen in person a bunch of times.
Who are some of those drummers?
Anybody that knows me knows that Tyler Coburn is one of the greatest, one of my faves.
I don't know. Who does he play with?
He plays with a band called Narwhal.
Okay.
Our guitar player is also in. He also plays with a metal band called Yautja, who is very badass as well. He's playing with a band in New Orleans called Thou.
Oh, he plays with Thou now.
Now he's playing with Thou.
Oh, okay. I know of him. I interviewed their previous drummer,
Okay.
and I saw that they had a new guy, but that's
Yeah.
funny.
And he's a young dude, but he is a slayer. He
That's
rips
awesome.
hard. But he's one of a ton. I mean, Boston, when I really started to get into Pile, it opened up this whole community of musicians, and there's a ton of great musicians up there.
Yeah.
Some of them came out of Berkeley, but a bunch of them didn't either, and there's a mashup. I mean, if I had to name all my favorite drummers, it's close friends too. It's crazy.
Right.
There's also, John Theodore is going to play
Yeah.
at
the Williamsburg Music Hall.
Williamsburg's Music Hall in the
Yeah.
next few weeks too, and I saw him this summer for the first time live, and it was as awesome as I wanted it to be.
I saw him in one of his early bands, Golden, and I talked about it before where I remembered hearing a drummer. I heard him from outside, and I
Nice.
walked in. This was in New Orleans at an old place called the Mermaid Lounge.
Yeah.
And he played, and I walked in. I could hear from outside that whoever was playing was badass.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and then physically seeing it, I was like, wow, this is a whole nother thing. And then when he joined the Mars Volta, I was like, this name sounds familiar. And I was like, oh, that's the guy that I saw in the Mermaid Lounge
Nice.
with like 15 people in the room that was peeling the paint off the fucking walls. So yeah, I hear you. Dude rules.
Yeah, great. I mean, but then the same show we saw him, we got to see Nine Inch Nails, and they also slayed. Their
yeah,
drummer,
dude.
and he was on the drums and the keys and the guitar.
Yeah.
He was,
It's Ilan Rubin. He's been playing with them for a minute. I mean, Josh Freese was there as well. But if
It
he
wasn't
was playing
Josh
a bunch of
Freese.
different instruments, that's probably him.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
multi-instrumentalist,
Yeah.
freak of nature.
killer drummer.
Yeah, he's about as big into Bonham as a drummer you'll hear.
Yeah.
And his tone, everything.
Yeah.
So
It was awesome.
I'm always down with that.
One of the best live shows I've ever seen.
Once you moved to Boston, it sounds like you just moved there just like it's not like you went there to become a Berkeley shredder.
No.
You went there just to meet people and to live in a different town, and you figured it was a musical town? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it was an epiphany that I had to leave the Midwest and try something different. And so when I was 11, my father had moved to Boston.
Okay.
And I had this epiphany when I was 22. So there was a gap there, but I went out there, reconnected with him. That was part of it, but also just a totally different environment. And it was one of the few cities that at that point I had actually spent any time in. And
Okay.
I didn't really know anybody there,
Right.
but I was able to get hooked up with the job and found a cheap place to live and was just trying to figure it out on my own, really.
That's awesome, man. In listening to y'all, there was when I saw that y'all from Boston, one of the first bands that came to mind, and it's a fairly esoteric reference, unless maybe you're from Boston, but this band, The Lot Six,
Yeah.
who I'm a big fan of, and as I was telling you earlier, I've never spoken about them on this podcast, but after Hurricane Katrina, it took a hurricane for me to move out of New Orleans. I'd
Yeah.
still be there. All my life would be completely different. So that's what it took to move me out of a city. I would have just
Yeah.
postponed it. I'd still be there. I relocated, and then I ended up staying. And within like the first few months, I went to this place. I don't remember if it was I think it was the Delancey, which I believe is still there down on
Okay.
Delancey and like Houston or whatever. And the first band that I saw was The Lot Six. And I couldn't believe how killer they were.
That's fortunate.
And
yeah.
I just remember thinking, man, like, if this is just how many more killer bands are there like this in New York? And I realized there weren't that many killer bands like that in New York. That was a specific band, but man, they're awesome. I have the recordings, I have the records.
Yeah.
That band is killer. And Pyle reminds me at times a little bit of the Lot 6.
Well, Rick would be stoked to hear that. He loved that band too. And it was like, from the bands that he talks about that I didn't know, because I didn't grow up in the Northeast. So, but he brings up them and Drexel and a couple other bands from that area that really influenced him a lot.
That's amazing.
I know that is definitely a direct influence.
If I meet him tonight, I'll mention it to him. That'd be fun to tell him about that.
I'll definitely be telling him.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's an interesting amalgamation of styles. I think there's definitely like the 90s Discord kind of noise guitar, dual guitar kind of dissonant thing happening, but then mixed with almost like an Americana folk thing at times.
Yep.
But all, it doesn't sound contrived, and it doesn't sound like
that's good to hear.
Overly segmented and separate. It sounds just like it's a kind of a single concept that works its way through it. So conceptually and however it's executed, it just works, which is pretty impressive.
Word. I mean, Rick is a very, very thoughtful guy, and he has a very broad range of music that he loves. He's a great guitar player, and he knows his way around the words as well. So he's kind of the total package. You know? And as a drummer, his guitar playing is really interesting to play to. It opens it up for me to be very creative, which is really nice. But I know sometimes we've talked about the fact that he doesn't like to settle into anything consistent as far as tempo or dynamic for too long. We've been toying with that more and more the longer we've been together, but like...
Well, the last song on the new record, Green and Gray, is it Hands? Is that the name of it? Or I could be fucking the name of it. It's the last song. No Hands. There it is. That one is... I mean, I've heard some songs like that on some of the previous records, but that one in particular is a slow burn, and it's the dynamics of it are pretty awesome.
Yeah, and... because I think, his first two recordings that he did under the name Pyle had a lot of mellow stuff on them. And then when we started doing it as a three-piece, when I joined up, it was rock.
Right.
It was like pretty aggressive through and through. There's, some melody in there and pop sensibility to a tiny degree, I suppose.
I think so.
But like it was definitely on the heavy side. And then since then, we've been slowly, as a band, incorporating that softer stuff that he's clearly got an ear for. So.
Yeah. It's amazing, though. Like, even on that first record, that's mostly, I guess it's pretty much just him, a lot of acoustic stuff.
Yeah.
I can still hear traces of that through all the way up to this most recent record.
Yeah.
So whatever conceptually he was working with, or just whatever he naturally does, is something that is still innate in what y'all do to this day, which is pretty badass.
Definitely, yeah. He's absolutely got his own style that I think comes through on pretty much everything he does. And that's, since I joined up with him, that quickly became a focus of mine, too, on the drums, which I, whether or not I pull that off, but like I definitely focused for a while. At first, it was making sure technique and speed and all that was there.
Yeah.
And then it was like creating some sort of an individual style that I could settle into at all. And I feel like I've gotten a pretty good handle on that, but always room to grow, obviously.
Sure.
But yeah, it's been interesting. I wonder sometimes whether or not my style is definitely just adapted around his, but I think I've recorded enough projects in the last few years to realize, like, okay, I think I do kind of have my own drumming style.
I think you do, for sure. I mean, I can't pinpoint any particular player. It reminds me maybe of a specific kind of, maybe once again, I think some of those DC drummers on that on like the Discord 90s stuff, I hear some of that 90s drum, but I'm also a total 90s drumming nerd and 90s music nerd in general. So I hear that, but not any particular player.
Yeah.
But I think what you do is great for the music, and it provides its own kind of source of energy, and the amalgamation of all that stuff creates what it is. You know?
Yeah, word. Thanks.
So I think that's cool.
Yeah, me too. I mean, ultimately, I want my playing to accent the songs in general and what's going on.
When do you think that the band started to kind of gel? Was it around? Was it like Magic Is Not Real? Maybe.
That's when we actually became a band.
Yeah.
It was me and Rick and Matt Becker.
Okay.
He was playing bass at the time. It was really quick too. We gelled very quick. That was kind of a very easy transition into the band too.
That's great.
And we were a 3-piece, so everything was smooth.
Right.
But then it hasn't been super tough since then. Matt had a kid he found out he was going to be a dad right after we had written and recorded Magic Isn't Real.
Okay.
So it was right from the get-go. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to be fully committed for a long time.
Yeah.
But he's held on right through Hair Shirt of Purpose.
By the way, is one of the more hilarious album titles.
Yeah.
Hair Shirt of Purpose. That's a good one.
It's a little bit of masochistic love of hating yourself, but I mean, not even entirely. But yeah, Rick, he really likes to think of that stuff. We toyed around with a lot of different album titles in the end, but that one, he comes up with some of them pretty easily. And
another really, really cool record, though.
Yeah, that one was a blast to record. We recorded that in Boston, and it was very easy, a lot of fun. I think it came out great.
Yeah.
We were all very proud of what we were able to do with that.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that you've also been able to have the output that you've had, one is to having a guy or the collective of you that write a lot of songs, I guess. But I think the records they have continuity and they sound like full records. It doesn't sound rushed, and the production of them is pretty raw. But I think the rawness suits what y'all are doing. I think it was overly polished. I think it would take away from the rawness that y'all have as a band.
I agree.
So I think all of that kind of works to where y'all can, I guess, just to put these records out. I'm like, how do they crank these things out? It's even if, like you said, even if it's older songs, you're like, yeah, that'll be a record.
Yeah,
it still sounds like a damn record when I listen to it. I'm like, man, how are these guys cranking this shit out?
I mean, it's Odds and Ends. That was a collection of albums.
Yeah.
But you were saying, so there's a song off of Demonstration that got reworked and re-recorded, and it sounds very different because it's just acoustic and Rick on the original, but we recorded it loud, full band, heavy, and that's on Odds and Ends, and it kind of comes full circle that you're right. I think Rick has been writing stuff in a certain vein, and it kind of has a similar arc as it always has in a certain way, but he's been refining it over the years to where it's more and more close to like Rick's song.
Yeah.
The Pile song, as it were.
Of those records, is there anyone that seemed particularly tough or one that maybe a recording process that you enjoyed the most of all of them, of those Pile records?
We've had a lot of good recording memories. We were just reminiscing last night in Philly. We recorded the album Dripping in Philly, and it was a wild week-and-a-half experience with a couple engineers in the hottest, sweatiest cement box that we've ever hung out in.
Oh, man.
A place called the Sex Dungeon, which was a studio that they had for years down there. And it was super fun, but also physically exhausting.
Oof.
Sweating through everything. But truthfully, it was after that, You're Better Than This, I think might have been it wasn't hard, but it was definitely one of the tougher recordings we've done. I think we had a very stressful drive. We recorded it in Omaha, and the transmission gave out on our way to the studio.
Oh, God.
So the last few days before we got there, we canceled a few shows and had to drive at like 20 miles an hour across Missouri and Nebraska.
Fuck, I've driven through there. Oh, God.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough way to get into a recording.
Dude.
And we weren't particularly rushed, but I do think that some of those songs with a little more time, may have fleshed out a little differently.
I mean, that could psych a band out, and that's what, I mean, you got to be careful with that going to the studio.
Yeah,
for sure.
After that, the engineer was great. We used the same engineer, but we flew him to Boston, and it was way easier. That was for Hair Shirt, and it was like
nice,
a much better recording. I mean, truthfully, Omaha was great, and he's an awesome host, and the studio was beautiful, but it ended up being much easier to do it in Boston.
You damn right it was. Oh man. Well, shit. Once again, congrats on Green and Gray. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing it tonight. Yeah, I guess y'all are going to Europe soon, so there's that. And
yeah, this fall we're doing.
Yeah, man. If you come back through New York again, we'll have to catch up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is second home to us, so we'll be back forever.
Nice, nice, man. Well, keep it up. Stay strong with the tour life.
Yeah.
Good luck tonight.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and thanks to Kris for catching up. It was cool to hang out on a park bench, not get rained on, similar to what happened when I did the interview with Paul Bearer. But we definitely got some good talks in, and I really do love that new record, man. I just can't get enough of it. Got all the Polvo, Faraway, Discord, folky influences that I dig. Living the 90s all over again. We'll catch you on the next one. Crash, bang, boom.